Something answered us from the forest that night. And I can promise you, it wasn't an echo, and it wasn't an animal. I never grew up believing in Bigfoot. To me, it was just another one of those American campfire stories, something people use to spook tourists and kids. But that all changed after one night in the Pacific Northwest tonight. I still do and like to think about too much. It happened when I was in my early 20s. There were 4 of us, and we decided to drive out to this remote forest area in Washington. My friend Ryan swore it was the perfect spot for camping. His uncle owned some land nearby and gave us a strange warning. Do not wander too far off the logging roads, especially after dark. He never explained why, and we didn't push it. We just figured he was talking about bears, or the risk of getting lost. The drive-in was long. After the pavement ended, we were on dirt roads for almost 2 hours. The trees were so tall, they seemed to swallow the sky. The deeper we went, the darker it felt, even though the sun hadn't set yet. By the time we finally set up our camp, there was 0 cell service and no sign of another human being for miles. Night fell fast out there. Once we got the fire going, things started to feel normal again. We were joking around, having a few drinks, just listening to the usual sounds of the forest crickets, the hoot of a distant owl, the wind whispering through the pines. After a while, Ryan pulls out his phone and smirks, saying, "You guys know this is Bigfoot country, right?" We all laughed, and someone dared him to play one of those Sasquatch calls you can find online. So he did. He cranked the volume, and this loud, unnatural wail blasted out into the woods. It was a long, hollow sound that echoed for a few seconds and then faded away. We all sat there, holding our breath, half joking but half expecting something to actually happen. But there was nothing. We all started laughing again, talking about how stupid it was. About a full minute passed. Then, something answered. The sound came from deep in the forest, way beyond the reach of our firelight. It was a lower pitch than the recording. Slower, more controlled. It didn't trail off like an echo, just stopped, clean and sudden, as if whatever made the sound decided when it was over. Instantly, every cricket, every insect went dead silent. I can still remember the feeling of the hairs on my arm standing straight up. Nobody said a word. Ryan tried to break the tension, laughing it off. "It's probably just someone messing with us," he said, but his voice was shaking. Or, some animal we don't recognize. But none of us bought it. A few minutes later, we heard movement. Heavy footsteps crunching through the brush just to our left. They weren't fast, and they weren't sneaky. It was just this steady, deliberate walking. Branches snapped under a weight that sounded way too heavy to be a deer or a bear. Whatever it was, it didn't seem to care that we could hear it. Then, we heard it on the other side of our camp, too. That's when the real panic started to kick in. The fire, which had felt so comforting moments before, now seemed totally useless, barely pushing back the immense darkness surrounding us. I had this overwhelming sensation that we were being watched. Not hunted, but studied. It's like something was curious about us. Then the call came again. This time it was much, much closer. It was so powerful it rolled through the trees and vibrated in my chest. I could feel it more than I could hear it. When it stopped, the silence that followed felt absolutely crushing. We had to get out of there. As we frantically started throwing our gear together, we heard a loud, solid thwack. Something had just hit a tree right behind our camp. The trunk shook and pine needles rained down on us. That was the moment my fear turned into something deeper, something primal. I looked toward the sound, and I saw movement. It wasn't clear. Just a tall, wide silhouette slipping between 2 trees. It moved upright, fluidly, and was impossibly quiet for something that big. I couldn't make out any details, but its shape blocked out the faint starlight behind it. And then it stopped. Everything went silent again, and I heard breathing. It was coming from just beyond the firelight, so close that I felt completely exposed. I knew, without having to see it, that it was right there, watching us. No animal breathes like that. We bolted for the car. The footsteps followed, not rushing, not chasing, just matching our speed perfectly. Staying just far enough in the dark that we couldn't see it, but close enough that we could hear every single step. As we reached the edge of the clearing, I risked one last glance back. At the tree line, something stepped forward. It didn't come into the light. It just stood there, tall, massive, and unmistakably upright. It let out one final sound, shorter this time, almost like a grunt, then turned and vanished back into the forest. We drove out of there in total silence, our headlights shaking on that narrow dirt road. No one said a single word until we hit pavement. The next morning, we drove back in the daylight to get the gear we'd left behind, and that's when we saw them, the footprints. They were deep impressions in the soft dirt near the edge of the clearing. When Ryan's uncle saw them, he refused to look for more than a second. He just looked at us and said, "You were lucky." When we asked him why, he said something I'll never forget. "Most people don't get answered back," he said. "And most things out here don't warn you before they get curious. I don't claim I saw Bigfoot that night, but I know something intelligent responded to us, something that understood sound, distance, and fear. And sometimes, late at night when everything goes quiet, I find myself listening, wondering if it remembers the sound we made, and if it's still out there, waiting for another answer." I never saw them, but I heard the drums, and I knew enough to lower my head and not look back. I was living on Oahu at the time, working late shifts and commuting home along a stretch of road that cut close to the mountains. Locals warned me early on not to drive that way after midnight, but they never explained why in detail. They'd just say things like, "If you hear something, don't stop," or "If you see torches, turn around." I assumed it was just local folklore meant to scare outsiders. One night I learned just how serious they were. It was just past 1 a.m. when I left work. The roads were empty, the air thick with humidity, and the sky was completely black. No moon, no stars. As I drove, the jungle pressed in on both sides of the road, the trees so dense they swallowed the headlights at the edges. About halfway through the mountain pass, I noticed how quiet everything had become. No insects, no wind. Even the sound of my tires seemed muted, like the night itself was holding its breath. That's when I heard it. At first, I thought it was my imagination, a low, distant rhythm barely audible over the engine. I turned the radio down. Sound became clearer. Drums. This wasn't music, it was a marching rhythm. Each beat felt deliberate, ancient, and heavy, echoing through the trees in a way that made it impossible to tell how far away it was. My chest tightened. I remembered the warnings. I eased off the gas, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The drumming grew louder, not faster, just closer. Then I heard something else layered beneath it. Footsteps. They didn't sound like people walking on pavement. They sounded like bare feet moving in unison over earth and stone, perfectly synchronized. The rhythm was hypnotic, terrifyingly precise. Then I saw the lights. Small points of orange glow appeared between the trees to my right, moving parallel to the road. Torches, not flickering wildly like handheld flames, but steady, disciplined, carried at an equal height. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. Every instinct told me to look, to see what was there. But another instinct stronger, deeper, told me not to. I slowed almost to a stop. That's when the chanting began, low voices, layered and rhythmic. Speaking words I couldn't understand. They didn't sound angry. They sounded focused, purposeful. Like I was nothing more than an obstacle they'd already accounted for. I remembered what a coworker once told me, half joking, half serious. "If you ever hear them, pull over, turn off your lights, lower your head, show respect." My hands shook as I did exactly that. I pulled onto the shoulder, turned off the engine, and killed the headlights. Darkness swallowed me instantly. I lowered my head, eyes fixed on the dashboard, every muscle in my body tense. The drumming was so close now, I could feel it in my bones. The chanting grew louder, passing directly beside the car. I could smell smoke, earthy and bitter, and something else, like damp soil after rain. Cold air crept into the car, even though the windows were closed. I felt seen. Not stared at, not judged, but acknowledged. Like something ancient had noticed my presence and decided what to do with it. The footsteps slowed. For a terrifying moment, the chanting stopped entirely. I thought I had made a mistake. Then, inches from my driver's side window, I heard breathing. Not frantic, not curious. Patient. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel and held my breath, silently begging whatever was out there to keep moving. The drumming started again. Slowly it moved past the car. The torch's glow slid across the interior for just a second, lighting the dashboard in a warm, unnatural orange. I didn't lift my head. I didn't blink. The sounds faded into the jungle, swallowed by distance and darkness. It stayed like that for several minutes, too afraid to move. When I finally turned the engine back on and drove away, my hands were numb, my shirt soaked with sweat. The road ahead looked normal, again empty, silent, ordinary. I didn't tell anyone what happened right away. But a few days later, I mentioned the drums to a local coworker. He went quiet and asked me one question. "Did you look at them?" When I said no, his shoulders relaxed. He told me I was lucky. He explained that the night marchers are said to be the spirits of ancient Hawaiian warriors traveling sacred paths at night. If you see them, if you meet their eyes, or if you show disrespect, they don't just scare you, they take you with them. Some people disappear. Others come back different, quiet, distant, never quite present again. I don't take that road anymore. Sometimes, late at night, when everything goes quiet and the air feels heavy, I swear I can hear drums in the distance. Still marching, still following paths older than the road. And I make sure, no matter where I am, to lower my head and never look back.